Hello everyone, March 12th, 2022. This recording here is on the Ukraine and the astrology which is related to this nation. I did quite a bit of research in the last week or so and came up with this chart which seems to hold very strongly linking into all the present events and what not. So first I wanted to talk a little bit about this chart, then I go into the transits and into the upcoming big alignments like the Mars-Saturn conjunction of April the 5th and then the solar eclipse of the 30th of April. This is a conflict which will span out over several months for sure. We probably, from what I can tell, we will see a resolution coming in after the solar eclipse in May, June, and by summer we hope we are through this terrible situation and found a solution that whatever was meant to be achieved was done deal by then. So let's first look at the Ukraine's chart a little bit. Ukraine rhyming on the word grain, I found that pretty interesting. Ukraine and Russia both are the biggest exporters of wheat, and naturally it's a farm-based community, a country. No wonder there is Taurus so strongly here at the bottom of the chart. There is 0 degrees Virgo, the sun here in this August 24th Declaration of Independence chart. And also the rising sign is in Earth sign Capricorn. So this in itself, there's lots of Earth energy, and Ceres, which is all about nourishment and food, is up high in the chart. Makes total sense, as I say, grains are the main export of the Ukraine, going out to the far wide world. Yes, wild it is too, absolutely, right now, no question on that. So what stands out is here this really difficult stellium in the first house, and when we use the progressions, as all astrologers do, then the ascendant moves about 1 degree per year. The 90s were extremely difficult. The inflation in the Ukraine was in the 3-4 digit realms. They had terrible difficulties to start with, so that got better after the year 2000. That helped me a lot, just this information. There's plenty of good information on the history of the Ukraine, naturally, on the Wikipedia page. This was part of my resource. The other resource, which I found extremely helpful, was Oliver Stone's documentary. And I want to just play you a little bit here to start with, to show you the complexity. This nation, the Ukraine, has been between fronts, I would say, for many centuries, kind of torn apart and been subject to invasions of all sorts, of different forces, of different political associations, because the Ukraine is rich and it has that contradiction in itself between the Russian side and the European side, and that internal conflict is definitely one of the greatest problems which has to be resolved in some way, pacified, to bring these two sides together to the table. Sedna here at the 4th house cusp is definitely illustrating that quite powerfully, that internal conflict, and Uranus rising here with the black moon and Neptune. There's lots of confusion and revolutionary tendencies. I want to play you a few minutes here of this documentary by Oliver Stone, which, as I say, I found extremely helpful. It shows the involvement of the West in a very... Well, if that would happen here in another country, we would call it out. But let me just play you this segment here.
Did you see any evidence of U.S. involvement? Did you feel their presence from the U.S.?
Очень частыми гостями были представители Соединенных Штатов.
So this is former President I can't even pronounce his name, Yevchenko, I guess, speaking here with Oliver Stone.
Смены были, госпожа Нуланд приезжала очень часто. У нас были с ней дискуссии, но после...
That goes back to 2014, just before that big color revolution, and that was the overthrowing of a legally instated government.
Этих дискуссий она шла на Майдан и поддерживала протестующих. И обвиняла правоохранительные органы, применялась чрезмерная сила. На самом деле... Эти все месседжи мы видели на Майдане.
Well, members of Congress were visiting Ukraine during that period, most famously Congressman John McCain. So some of the people who were challenging their government, their elected government at that point, were being told by the senior U.S. official, a person who ran for president and a top official in the U.S. Congress, that the U.S. was with them.
I'm Senator John McCain, and it's always a pleasure to be back in Ukraine.
Senator McCain was, in a sense, giving the people in the Maidan a feeling that they had the backing in the most powerful country on earth.
This is about the future you want for your country. This is about the future you deserve.
Well, just want to say, if any other nation's high-ranking politician would come to Canada or to the US and speak publicly in whatever, Ottawa or Washington, and basically promote the overthrowing of an elected government, I don't know what you would do with that. Anyway, I also want to share this one here, which I found this morning. That was Nathaniel Rothschild warns British government the New World Order is dead if Putin wins the Ukraine. Rothschild warns British government they must not lose Ukraine. If our military fails against Putin, our global order is dead on its feet. Well, I guess this tells you everything, as I mentioned here in my comment. Also, I want to share this clip here. That's Udo Alfkotte, who was 25 years the principal editor of the Frankfurter Allgemeine, one of the biggest newspapers in Germany. Finally, in 2015, he came out because he was not able to support all that fake news anymore, and that was his statement. He was found dead just after he published his book in 2017 at the young age of 57 years. So that's what he had to say.
Well, I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. But seeing right now, within the last months, how far, how the German and American media tries to bring war to the people in Europe, to bring war to Russia. This is a point of no return, and I'm going to stand up and say it is not right what I have done in the past, to manipulate people, to make propaganda against Russia, and it is not right what my colleagues do and have done in the past. Because,
well, you get the picture. And that's what happens to journalists who finally decide they don't support the system anymore, they pay with their lives. That's why so few are daring to step out of the line. Hopefully there will be more protection and more daring to do this important step. Anyway, that is just a few things I wanted here to share, supporting what in my opinion is happening, my understanding that this is really a cleansing of Nazi elements. And there's one more article I want to share with you here, which is this one here. That was Al Jazeera, and that was an article which just was published on March the 1st. And just want to share this here with you. So there's this right wing, okay, this Azov is a far right all volunteer infantry military unit whose members are ultra-nationalists and accused of harboring neo-Nazi and white supremacist ideology. The unit was initially formed as a volunteer group in May 2014. That was after the illegal toppling of an elected government, which I just showed you a clip of. That was in that time when all these foreign players were putting propaganda out. So a few months after recapturing the strategic port of Mariupol from Russian-backed separatists, units was officially integrated into the National Guard of Ukraine on November the 12th, 2014, and exacted high praise from then President Petro Poroshenko, who was put in power by the CIA, basically. These are our best warriors, he said at an award-winning ceremony in 2014, our best volunteers. So I just want to make this point that Putin is not lying by what he's intending to do to clear the Ukrainian nation from the Nazis. So this is what we really see here, this deep-seated conflict within the nation, and this is definitely not, there's no easy fix to it. People have to grow to make peace with each other, to abandon all these extremist ideologies, and those who are really the instigators, they have to be brought to justice, which is Palace theme, which I zoned in my other video I just did yesterday, which kind of shows the cosmological energies over the next few months. Palace, Athene, justice and truth being one of the main players right now, together with Chiron. Interesting in this chart also all this 8th house placement, particularly with Mercury and Venus retrograde. Retrograde planets are always very difficult, particularly personal planets, most of all Venus and Mars. So Venus actually turned direct by progression around 2012. So these initial problems the nation had these past 30 years should bring it out of its infancy into a more mature state. I mean, as I say, Ukraine was never independent before. For the past whatever 1,000 years, always other nations were in there, having their fingers in there. So this is a challenge for that nation to find its own voice and deal with its own problems in its own ways. There's this Mars TX 300 opposition, which I also found really interesting, also here with Australia. Shows that strong militaristic and forceful resolution of issues and problems. Also, the moon here in Aquarius is interesting, and particularly so in the context of what's going on right now in transits. I just want to zoom back here to this chart, which I explained more in depth yesterday, my earlier video, which was the heliocentric Chiron Pallas conjunction of February 15, which was just followed a few hours later by that extremely large solar flare. If you're interested, go watch that one. What I find interesting is that meridian axis over Greenwich, over the Syrian meridian at 22 degrees Taurus, is in a perfect T-square to the Ukrainian moon. That would be a strong indication that the Ukrainian nation would be in the line of fire, I would almost say here, of this energy expressing itself. This was a seed moment. This same moment in for Kiev has a 23 degrees Virgo on the ascendant, and just want to zoom back here. That's pretty much where Mars is in its chart, and then when in a few days Pallas and Chiron will have their geocentric conjunction here again in Aries at 11:23. Again we see that degree at the ascendant in Kiev. I found that pretty special, giving away that yes, there is some Martian energy being expressed in that location of the planet in regards to that Pallas Chiron theme of getting to the bottom of a problem. That's basically what it is. Cleaning out a whole bunch of criminals and extremists. And this chart also shows that Kiev in the Ukraine is at the center of this operation, Sun-Nessus conjunction of March 5. Nessus again is that centaur planet which represents all the pathological tendencies, abuse, and extremism of all sorts, heartless energies. And with the Jupiter and the Sun here, that has been definitely brought into the was exaggerated and brought light into, expanded so everybody could see it. It's kind of opening that Pandora's box in Kiev, in the Ukrainian nation. Made me also think of that quote from Q at the time, a few years back, that military will be the only solution. We thought of that at the time, that it would be, meaning the American military, which is still possible at some point to deal with all the arrests which are definitely coming at some point. But Putin was doing the first step in that sense, using military to get in there and to clean out that nest of vipers of fibers, which it really is what's going on there. Okay, so now Saturn is playing an interesting role here. Saturn is having 3 transits over the position of the Ukrainian moon at 2203. So there is this first one, being exact, in April the 1st. That's when, let me show you Saturn here at 2203, being exactly on the moon of the Ukraine. And you see that's the stellium here: Mercury, Moon, Sun, Chiron, Pallas. Particularly interesting, this is just short before that powerful new moon of April 1st. And with Pluto here in midheaven, yes, this is where transformation is happening, and we will see that signature over and again. Also, while Saturn is exactly on the Ukraine's moon, we are just days away from the Mars-Saturn conjunction. Also, Juno is involved here, and Venus all around here, the 11th house axis. The 11th house is the house of bringing people together onto the table and doing the negotiations, and also getting the people into a place of taking the destiny of their country into their own hands. That is really what is going on. Then a few days later, yes, this is now April 5, we're looking at the Mars-Saturn conjunction. This is the global chart. Interesting here is that Uranus at the 4th house cusp, and when I looked at this chart weeks ago, I thought this was definitely very explosive, this chart. This now Mars and Saturn are kind of a bend or break point. When they come together, they set a new direction here in early April for the coming year, coming many months. And the theme is difficult. The moon here, void of course, conjunct Sedna again. Uranus at the 4th house cusp. This will rattle our whole planet through this next Mars-Saturn cycle. The Quaoar Pholus conjunction, which I did quite a bit piece of writing on. I just want to show you here on my Facebook page. Pholus Quaoar conjunctions are about demanding and trying and rather complex situations and their sudden and surprising clearing and dissolution. I wrote this on the day actually when the war started, and it shows up in many other places too. So it is an I can refer you here to my Facebook page if you want to read this. And what is interesting is that this conjunction of Pholus and Quaoar will occur over the next many years into 2062. So this is an incredibly powerful clearing which will be going on many levels through many years, most exact here between 2022 and 2030, but nevertheless they will move in close step for many, many decades to come. This was just their first conjunction, and why I'm pointing that out is those two are at the ascendant of this Mars-Saturn conjunction. So that Mars-Saturn conjunction will be bringing us globally into that place where we have to make decisions on a personal and also on a collective level. Which way are we going? It's kind of a fork, and it will be a definite choice. There's no I guess it's really the last moment when choice is being possible. After that, it will go definitely in different directions. Beautiful Hygeia again here at the top of the chart. And I want to just remind you again that this is a very similar chart to the Chinese New Year chart for Greenwich. So this Mars-Saturn is a signature of this year. It will be a bend or break here. There will be made clear decisions, and Hygeia, again, health, well-being, serendipity is the direction we're moving into, and to achieve that there will be tremors and difficult shaking moments, kind of awakening people to reality they have been neglecting or just being hypnotized by all the false narratives falling out of the clouds. Kind of that is the energy here. Also again want to show you the extreme resonance with the Ukraine's chart. Over and again we see that same, those two same axes, and you see the Ukraine's Uranus here at 10 degrees in Capricorn, and here it is touching on to that too. This is now the same chart, Mars-Saturn conjunction for Kiev, and here you see the two exactly at the ascendant, Mars and Saturn, and again think the Ukrainian moon at 2203 right here at this degree 2. Yes, the Ukrainian nation is suffering, is going through very difficult purification, and we have to send our compassion definitely and be there with our hearts, but knowing that this is a process which was in the books. Astrology again reveals that there's no coincidences, there's only synchronicities, and there are nodal points in our lives which we have to pass through. There's no way around it. This is one of them collectively, and it will have repercussions. The resolution of what's going on there globally, it will bring us into a better place overall. That's why Nathaniel Rothschild is so desperately urging for Putin to be defeated. They are all panicking. There's no question in that. So the time of truth is coming. Also here with Ceres at the root of the chart, it is about coming back to that place of nourishment and of, in Gemini, also on an intellectual level, on a communication level of, and that energy of being fed through information that is here at the bottom of the chart. And naturally that moon Sedna energy, which we have been seeing all through the last year already, over and again in key charts appearing. It is part of that awakening to a very ugly truth. And the black moon here also quite exactly with the moon together here, flanking that consciousness axis, so what's called a planetary picture. They're resonating here in that point. So yes, it's a difficult energy, and it won't be over so fast. The first half of April will be particularly difficult. Just be prepared for that. As I said in my yesterday's recording, after mid of April we will see improvements. This is the midpoint chart of that Mars-Saturn conjunction for Kiev with the Ukrainian independence chart. Palace here again at the ascendant, meaning the fight for truth and justice, which has to be implied, or what's the word, done with the sword. It is, justice has to be enforced in a way. That's why the army is important. Pallas Athene, after all, is depicted in wearing armor, but also the blindfold is an interesting feature of it, that it's that justice is blind in a way, that it doesn't really, it cannot be swayed, it cannot be bribed. I guess that's what the blindfold is standing for. It looks purely at the facts and is not looking at potential benefits of certain outcomes. It is totally looking inward to find that resonance of truth and act upon it. The moon here in that midpoint chart here, close to the black moon again, and guess what? 10 degrees 51 here in Libra. That is pretty exactly where Pallas is in the Ukrainian independence chart. So it all comes full circle. Pallas is the central energy which is playing out right now. Pallas is in Aries together with Chiron, as we looked at yesterday in more detail. Now let's zoom forward, just a little bit of a preview here. That is the solar eclipse of April 30th, with Sun and Moon at 10 degrees something in Taurus. And again, it's just epic to see that this is where the eclipse will happen, right at the 4th house cusp. That's why this eclipse of April 30th will be the beginning of the resolution. So just in itself, this is a powerful chart. Venus and Jupiter are conjunct here, and the new moon here is conjunct Uranus. Will be a turning point of sorts. It's following that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction of April 12th, which will open many people's hearts and minds to a more spiritual understanding of what's going on this planet. It's part of that big wake-up process we are involved in. This is the midpoint chart of the total solar eclipse for Kiev and the independence chart of the Ukraine. I find that super interesting that we have the galactic center here at the ascendant, framed in by Pluto again and Mercury. It will be the time when people will start getting onto the sitting around the same table. I mean, there's already attempts now, but I just learned after the second meeting of Russian and Ukrainian diplomats, the main negotiator on the Ukrainian side was murdered. So he already had probably made too many, had gone a few steps too far in that right extremist's eyes. He was murdered by that extreme right group. I forget the name, Red something. You can look it up. So anyway, this is a slow process of detaining all the criminals, and then when the scene is cleared, which definitely will take a few more weeks of hot war in that sense, and the Nazi-led forces under, I guess, it's still Poroshenko who's the ruling, the president. They do everything to prolong that war and to use their own population as shields, putting military into hospitals and into kindergartens. I saw another picture of, so that when the Russian army is coming in and destroying their headquarters, it's difficult. It's very difficult, and I'm sure they do it as carefully as they can, the Russian army, to clean out all that criminal activity, but it doesn't go without casualties. However, this is a sign of hope, that by the end of April we will see them coming together and starting to work out the details of how to bring this nation back to peace. Yes, last but not least, here again I have the Year of the Tiger, which is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful moments in the year, which truly predicted that conflict as being a main ingredient of the year 2022, Mars rising, Uranus at the 4th house cusp. And again, this is where the eclipse will happen at 10 degrees something in Taurus. So that's why this is absolutely a turning point we can look forward to. Let me see if I have anything else lined up here for you which I wanted to share. I guess I showed you everything here. So again, thank you for watching, and we are with the Ukrainian people. We are with all the people who are going through hardship, and send them our love, our emotional support. And thanks for joining and listening, and see you soon. And give it a like or share it if you wish to do so. Okay. Thank you.